Tactical strategy games are a staple in gaming. There are thousands of them, and how do you find the best? After covering a lot of upcoming strategy games, you've asked me to be more specific. So today I'm bringing you new tactics games that are turn-based. Will you want to take a turn in any of them though? Let's find out. Taking a step, Guild Saga Vanished Worlds. On your maiden voyage with the Heroes Guild, your ship was capsized by an enigmatic maelstrom, stranding your party on Respite Island. Navigate your way through pirates, ferocious beasts, and shady alchemists as you unravel its mysteries. This one does have JRPG vibes with a little bit of CRPG, but generally this is a tactical strategy game at its heart. The visuals are very nice. Now, I'm personally a fan of pixel art, and I know not everyone likes pixel art. Don't worry, there's plenty of non-pixel art games on this list. But for pixel art, this does look very pleasant to look at. Going through the game, there's gonna be plenty of classic turn-based combat in these varied environments. There's plenty of customization you can do as well. Your player character and your companions you can optimize and tweak to make the perfect party. And there's over 100 skills spread across 10 different schools that your characters can learn. And of course there's the usual mechanics like attributes and experience, and those attributes do unlock new dialogue options, or you could gain exploration boosts. There's also thousands of items throughout the game, and your companions have their own little backstories, side quests, and dialogue that you can engage in with all of these various characters. There's also little side activities like gathering resources with fishing, woodcutting, herbalism. I mean, pretty much every other game these days has fishing. You can craft and enchant items. The whole game revolves around a story campaign where your decisions are supposed to matter and there are branching paths. So things should split up and be a little bit different if you play it different. The nice thing about Guild Saga Vanished Worlds is that there is a free demo. It is releasing on the 16th of April 2024, so not too long from recording this video, but you can just try the free demo right now and see if you like it. And then for today's sponsor, Silence of the Siren. This is a sci-fi turn-based tactical battle game with some empire management. Click the link below to check it out. At first glance, you may see similarities to Heroes of Might and Magic, but there's a lot of unique elements here that set it apart. You have what fans of the subgenre would love: exploring a fantastical map, cities to manage and build structures in, heroes to control, resources to secure, armies to expand, and zoomed-in tactical battles. The sci-fi setting means factions and species are very different and kinda crazy at times. There are powerful artifacts and technologies, and overall, the general goal is to be an old-school strategy game with modern controls in a new kind of world. Personally, I think it looks great, visually speaking. Animations are smooth and the art style is filled with detail and design. The new factions and species may take some getting used to, as they can feel a little weird, but it's not the generic races we see in almost every other game. And the best thing is that you can just jump in right now to see what it's like for yourself. There's a free demo you can try, and the demo itself is being regularly updated, so remember to click the link below to see more of Silence of Sirens right now, and the early access will be starting up sometime in the future. And then we've got Interregnum Chronicles False Prophet, a tactical turn-based survival game. The world has just ended, and almost everyone mysteriously died, and now it's snowing in California. Your child is missing, but you know where to go. You'll never make it alone though, so you need to convince others to join up with you, and in that process you've kind of become a false prophet. This is a weird kind of story, but it's a survival tactical battle with RPG elements kind of game, and you're all stuck here in an eternal winter. Seemingly, some kind of extraterrestrial mind virus arrived on Earth, killing 95% of humanity. But basically, the world has been turned upside down in pretty much every way possible. The tactical turn-based battles will be against other desperate survivors, so you'll be needing to use suppression and flanking to outsmart and outmaneuver your enemies. And outside the battles, you do need to survive the elements. There's hunger, and you have to survive the cold, while you keep pushing forward and exploring the world as it is now, which is filled with anomalies and things that are difficult to understand. Through your journey, you'll be recruiting survivors to your cause, and you manage this caravan that follows you. A lot of tactical games these days have a kind of base or a city or a structure or something that sort of anchors the experience of the whole game. And I'm a big fan of adding this sort of separated base building mechanic into tactical games. I like it. And in this one, it does seem like it's the caravan that follows you along. And that actually does sort of remind me a little bit of the Banner Saga. That kind of works like that, but maybe not quite exactly the same. It's interesting. But anyway, this one at least sounds very different, and Interregnum Chronicles False Prophet is meant to be releasing in Q2 2024. Next up, we've got Successor. This one is a rogue-lite strategy adventure which is supposed to blend real-time and tactical turn-based gameplay. So this one is a little weird because it's a little bit real-time, a little bit turn-based. But because there is turn-based design in it, I'm gonna mention it here. You build and equip your team of heroes, and you conquer procedurally generated regions. You can even generate your own campaigns and complete challenges to unravel and expand your miniature universe. As you can see from the visuals and what this game looks like, this does have very tabletop inspirations. It basically looks like a tabletop game with a very nice sort of visual style. It does feel very cozy, but because it's digital, it does allow a bit more complicated set pieces and environments compared to the traditional tabletop, which you could achieve physically, but it would be very expensive. So Successor takes the major cost out of that. It's also procedurally generated, so there's an unlimited, conceptually, amount of maps and tables you can play on. The initiative is always yours here. You can immerse yourself in the heart of battle, where real-time engagement flows seamlessly, yet it grants you the strategic edge to always pause and orchestrate tactical maneuvers on the battle board. So the way it works is essentially it's a turn-based game that is constantly running in real time, and I know the concept of time is difficult and complicated. So it's sort of a real time with pause, but it's designed as a turn-based game. It's just the clock is always ticking, but you can pause it. So if you pause frequently, it's basically a turn-based game. I don't know. You tell me whether this fits in this list or not, but it's such an interesting idea. And I think if you're a fan of turn-based tactical games, then Successor, being inspired by tabletop, would be something that you would be interested in. So have a look at Successor, see whether you think it's good or bad, and whether you think it's a turn-based game or a real-time game, but it's really both. And it's supposed to be releasing sometime in 2024. So if you're looking forward to it, you'll see more of Successor over the next year. Hey, now that you're a bit into the list, I'm sure you're enjoying it, so it would be greatly appreciated if you can like the video. Thank you. Alright, next game. Spear Song. Ancient Slavic knights fight against evil in turn-based tactical combat. You lead your group through the kingdom to cleanse the land from fiends and monsters. Every attempt you go on, it presents a new and randomly generated journey. So this is another one with some procedural random generation to try and keep things fresh. But procedural generation and randomization, it only goes so far. You still need to eventually have some handcrafted elements, and hopefully there's some of that here. You'll be diving into a fairy tale setting inspired by Slavic folk art. You lead a squad. The tactical gameplay is based on combining the skills of units and manipulating the enemy's position on the battlefield. You'll be writing your legend as you go through the world. You can upgrade your knights, different characters do have unique skills, and you can sort of synergize and combine the abilities to work well together. But you do have to be careful about your warriors. The dead can't be returned. If you lose, you'll need to start all over again with a new squad. So characters in this game have permadeath. Now visually, it might not be the best looking game on the list. It does have a bit more of an indie look to it, but not too bad. It's actually still pretty pleasant on the eyes. But if you're not too sure about Spearsong, there is a free demo on Steam which you can check out right now. And the game will be releasing on the 28th of May 2024. So you can see the free demo now and see if this is one that you want to get fully into. There's Capes. Superheroes clash in a turn-based strategy game. You recruit, train, and deploy your team in order to take back the city from the villains that hold it hostage. 20 years ago, the supervillains won, and since then they've created a dystopian city where developing superpowers is a crime. So obviously, we're all criminals now, but also the heroes. The game takes place across a series of campaign and patrol missions, and you can choose to push forward with the story or take your time to explore the side missions and unlock more heroes, earning skill points and completing challenges, and learning more about your heroes' lives along the way. A superhero tactical game does sound exciting. There is a free demo aiming for a 2024 release, but nothing specific, so you can build up your superhero team, upgrade your powers, and challenge your heroes. And then Demonschool. This is supposed to be a new style tactical RPG-ish kind of thing, where motion equals action. You defeat what they're calling big weirdos in between the human and demon worlds, and you play Faye along with her misfit companions while navigating university life on a mysterious island. This sounds like an anime setting, but I don't know, it could be cool. So it's a tactical game, but you can rewind any action during the planning phase, so you can create combos to dispatch your foes, but if you can sort of work out exactly what you're going to do with a little bit of mixing and matching and testing and seeing how things will play out. There's a light horror narrative through the story. You'll be leveling up your characters and building their skills. There's 15 characters to build relationships with. And overall, it has a pretty nice looking pixel art aesthetic, which is kind of what you would expect from a tactical game. But then there's these weird sort of visual effects and 3D elements and illustrated characters. So there's a lot of mixed art styles going on in this one, and I think that's kind of what Demonschool is going for. It's a mix of things that you wouldn't quite expect to go together, but then it kind of does go together. So I'm very intrigued with Demonschool, and you might be as well. So you can have a look at this one, which is supposed to be releasing in Q2 of 2024, when we'll know exactly what Demonschool is. And then I'm going to mention a game that I usually would cut off at this point, Rising Lords. This game was in early access since 2020, so like about 4 years, but it has finally released on the 18th of January 2024, so that makes it a 2024 game. This is a medieval turn-based strategy game with card and board game elements. You send your serfs to fight and die in your name, or you can let them prosper and use them to your economic advantage. Now, this game did finally release after years in early access. It's got overall mostly positive reviews, floating just about the 70% mark, so you're gonna have to have a closer look to see if this is really one for you. There is a free demo though, so you can just try it out yourself. And yeah, we've been watching Rising Lords for years, it's finally released, and we can all judge it for what it is now. Staying Pixel, Trash of the Titans. Here we have a turn-based fantasy tactics game with trash animals. You defend your trash from invading rats, and you eat your trash to upgrade your team. You have to think your way out of ruin by using the shape of each level to your advantage. So it says shape. Basically, you gotta play the terrain. You have to be creative, and you gotta try not to die. But the main theme here is trash and trash animals. You know, rats, raccoons, that sort of thing. Which, sure, yeah, that's a setting. Each new level you reach will unlock new abilities and relics in the dumpster, and you'll be eating trash to upgrade your stats. But you and your trash friends will have the power of friendship on your side, so as long as you stick together, you'll make it through the trash. I mean, this one does just feel like the developer really loves what they're making. It's a silly, whimsical premise, and you wouldn't make this sort of game unless you actually loved what you're doing. So I do see that, and I do feel that coming out of this game. If you're really unsure of Trash of the Titans, which I'm sure many of you are, there is a free demo on Steam that you can try right now, but it will be releasing into early access as well in 2024, so no particular fixed release date for the full version of this game, but there is a free demo right now, and early access will reveal what's underneath all the trash for Trash of the Titans. Next tactics game, Cyber Knights Flashpoint. This is a squad tactics heist RPG kind of game. You're supposed to be employing clever stealth, strategic combat, unique 23rd century cyberpunk, all in a unique 23rd century cyberpunk game. You build your crew of hackers, mercs, and malcontents, and their stories become interwoven with your own as you play through the game. You will be utilizing powerful cyberware, there's faction connections, and you have to use everything at your disposal to outsmart the odds and determine your future. Big promises here are deep character builds with lots of customization, dynamic stories and characters that evolve as you explore everything, and generally it looks kinda nice and seems to have a lot going for it. It is in early access right now. It entered early access towards the end of 2023 to a few but very positive reviews. On Steam, floating around 90% positive. They're planning for about a year in early access, so this should be looking at a full release towards the end of 2024 if it's not delayed. Could be cool. Moving away from that, Dead Weight. Here you'll be challenging ancient gods. You set sail on your flying pirate ship and embark on an adventure in a steampunk world. You explore floating islands and search for loot, you choose a class or create your own and enjoy turn-based tactical combat on tiny battlefields where every step matters. The main point here in these tactical battles is that the maps are very, very small, very limited. It's really dependent on the positioning and terrain that you're working with. You gotta be extra clever when the battlefields are so small. There's a huge crisis threatening the world, and mighty creatures have risen from their eternal slumber. As you battle through the tiny battlefields, you'll be getting stronger. You can upgrade your ship, train your crew. There's an extensive skill tree, 15 classes, and a multi-classing system, so you'll be able to build your own unique character. And overall, the world is full of danger, including ancient ruins, uncharted islands, and just weird, mysterious creatures. It generally looks very pleasant, very charming, very quaint. It's sort of one of those tiny tactical games that could just really work really nicely. Another one with a free demo you can try right now. This one is planning to release in Q4 2024. So if you're looking for a smaller kind of tactical battler, then Dead Weight might be for you. And then we have Plague Lords. The investigation of multiple disappearances in the midst of the Black Death turn into a bloody stand against the mysterious new threat. Survive in a turn-based tactical sandbox, managing a settlement and dozens of peasants, craftsmen and warriors to stop the upcoming scourge. This one has you battling infected, exploring a land shrouded in mystery, and uncovering secrets as you command a small squad of trained soldiers, building up your own military camp with fortifications and crafting structures, even placing down traps, barricades, and fortifications to survive out here. So generally this one looks pretty interesting. I don't think there's too much that sort of looks or feels like it plays like this, and yeah, it'd be cool. No particular demo or release window right now. There is supposed to be a prologue, which will act as a demo for this game called Plague Lord's Witch Hunt. Plague Lords, the full game, is supposed to be releasing Q3 of 2024. Then for a smaller, more niche game that's already released, Highwater. Earth has flooded and the planet is doomed, but there's still time to enjoy the view. You'll be exploring the flooded world of Highwater in a story-driven adventure game where you'll have to fight for your chance to escape. Now, this one is sort of that post-apocalyptic but cozy kind of experience where you're exploring the end of the world, but it's kinda pretty at the same time. There is tactical turn-based combat here, but it is sort of an action-adventure as well, and it's got some very scenic vistas to look at, and it might not be the most advanced tactical game out there, but it might be worth having a look at. Now, this one did release on the 14th of March 2024 to very few user reviews. Not many people really got into it at the start, so it's hard to tell whether this is something that could have the potential. Generally, the user reviews, the few that have come in, are relatively positive. But maybe it's a bit too much of indie-inspired things, maybe the low-poly art style, or the sort of cozy adventure aesthetic, and then maybe it's the tactical battles that don't quite gel with that, or the post-apocalypticness that doesn't quite gel with the cozy aesthetic. I don't know whether people don't quite get what Highwater is or not. It's whimsical, it's an isometric turn-based puzzle combat system, and I think it's worth a look at least. So go have a quick look at Highwater and see if the flooded world is one you want to dive into. Going mech, Arcseed. You face the interstellar Archangels in a turn-based tactical game with deck-building elements and a destructible environment, where you pilot powerful mechs to save Earth from destruction. Mechs and tactical strategy games tend to go well together, and this one is sort of a pixel art, indie-looking one, and it seems to have some things going for it. You equip your mech where you can upgrade your systems, weapons, and manage your deck. There's a city fortress where you buy artillery, tanks, and more mechs to face the incoming threat. Buildings can be pushed and pulled and destroyed. You can build obstacles and use them as firing cover, or even crush the angels between the buildings. All while you're trying to save the citizens, making sure the population is evacuated in time so that the governments will reward you. Now, there's not a lot of details right now in terms of gameplay and all of that, but it is aiming for an early access release sometime in 2024, with up to half a year in early access, but I assume it will take much longer than that. So it could have a full release in 2024, but maybe it's delayed into 2025 for Arcseed. And then we have Space Prison, a tactical survival game with turn-based brawls and RPG social mechanics. That being specific on the RPG social mechanics. You survive the galaxy's toughest prison and you rise to the top of the gang, explore, fight, befriend, trade, and craft to escape. But you gotta make sure the system doesn't break you first, as death is not an excuse for a shorter sentence. Space Prison is an interesting premise, and you're part of a gang. You get to join the gang and then climb your way to the top. The turn-based brawls in the battle system is what you would expect, kind of position-based fighting with different characters with different stats and abilities. Socializing is the main thing here, because you can't just fight your way to the top. There's politics in prison. You gotta earn the trust and respect of your other inmates, making them allies, being wary of who's your enemy. And survival mechanics are here as well, crafting items, managing equipment, collecting resources, and making sure you're not caught at security checkpoints because you can lose all the stuff you've been working hard to create. This is another game that's sort of mixing a lot of different elements. Part RPG, part survival game, part tactical strategy game, part narrative adventure, and it sort of feels like it kind of all came together. It feels kind of interesting. Good news, there's a free demo for Space Prison right now, and it's planning to release into early access on the 10th of April 2024. And it's supposed to only be in early access for 5 months, which is a very short amount of time for early access, but that does mean it's planning for a full release in 2024. But I think almost every time I see an early access plan of 6 months or less, it's always longer than that. So there's a small chance Space Prison enters early access, goes smoothly, and releases fully by the end of the year sometime, or it could be a bit longer, maybe a 2025 full release. But for now, Space Prison, a tactical game that's set for 2024. For some of the best pixel art you've seen, Songs of Conquest. We have been watching this game for a while now. It's been a number of years, and it's been in early access since 2022. So it's been a while, but it's going very well, and it looks amazing because personally I'm a huge fan of pixel art, but also this sort of feels like Heroes of Might and Magic or Age of Wonders, that kind of vibe, and it's just right up my alley. But it's also got 87% positive on Steam, so, you know, if you haven't checked it out, maybe you want to check it out. In this game, you raise mighty armies, wield ancient magic, and build an empire. It's a turn-based strategy adventure game, which has the RPG elements, like most fantasy 4Xs do. But there's also tactical combat and kingdom management, so there's the overworld, and then battles take place on their little arenas. As it's been going through development, the factions have been expanding, and they're pretty unique. It's not just humans, orcs, elves. There's the lizard people, the undead have some weird things going on as well, and the human factions aren't just human. They have certain alignments and alliances, which really do set them apart. And it's called Songs of Conquest because the whole thing narratively is built around songs. They're calling it a choral campaign, as it tells the tale of rise and ruin through various characters and factions. They're also pushing the in-game level editor for people to create their own adventures and stories with their maps, not just building versus maps and competitive settings, but also stories and events and goings-on, which is always really cool. And having played some of it, the missions do feel quite different. Sometimes you're escaping from a chasing enemy, kind of like in an FTL sort of vibe. Other times you're building up a giant empire or breaking out prisoners. Mission design is actually kind of diverse. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm into Songs of Conquest, and since it's been playable for a couple years now, you might know it already. But if you don't know it, I can highly recommend checking it out. Taking a bit more of a chance, Dice Gambit. Shape and lead your own fully customized noble family of inquisitors in charge of hunting and slaying the chromatic monsters which threaten the city of Neotalis, all while navigating the internal power struggle of the elite families of the city in an absurd and treacherous political landscape. Now, as the title implies, this one does have a dice mechanic. It's turn-based tactics with a dice twist. You'll be navigating the battlefield by rolling dice and using them to control your knights in combat. So this one has a big element of RNG, which you have to take into account, which I know some people like the strong RNG elements in games and some people really don't like it. Some people like a little bit of RNG, but not too much. So you have to see whether this one is up to your tastes. You can combine dice to unleash your character's powerful abilities and decimate your foes, or you can re-roll specific die to be the master of your own fate. There's a lot here as well that could end up coming out of those dice. Over 200 abilities and passives. You can attend the academy to pick amongst a plethora of classes, each with unique mechanics, and you can shape your characters by freely mixing skills from different classes however you like. And it's sort of designed so that you can kind of break the game by discovering and creating over-the-top OP, overpowered builds and synergies. So it's one of those games where there's so many possible permutations that the developers can't possibly think of every possible combination. So you're supposed to find things that are broken. You are meant to try and break this game and become a god of the dice. Now, besides the battles and abilities, you'll be building your own legacy by defining your own noble family. There's a family agenda. You can marry partners with the right combination of skills. You can incubate new heirs, so there's a kind of a breeding system. and you develop your lineage. All the while, there's the political side of things with alliances and enemies, so you can influence things in the world and eventually climb to the top of the political ladder, so you can be the one not just with the physical combat power, but the conceptual power as well. Idea-wise, Dice Gambit sounds amazing, and I know not everyone will be into the dice sort of concept, but if you are into the dice concept or you're just fine with it, then Dice Gambit seems like it's an ambitious one that could deliver a lot if they stick to their promises. It is planning a 2024 release, so we should see much more of Dice Gambit over the coming months. Then, Crown Wars: The Black Prince. The War of Crowns rages on, knights and brigands run rampant throughout the land, sowing destruction. From your castle base, you rise to become the lord who leads the battle against the forces of evil in this turn-based tactics and strategy game. So in this game, you are the boss, you're the lord of your fiefdom, and you'll be leading the battle against the forces of evil. You recruit, equip, and train your soldiers, manage your base of operations, as in your castle, and you go out into the world searching for the source of evil to thwart their diabolical plot. You will also have to handle your stewardship and use diplomacy, all while upgrading your keep to ensure your lands prosper and don't run out of resources. I mean, it's got a very fantasy medieval vibe to it, so if that's the kind of tactics game you're looking for, Crown Wars: The Black Prince is aiming for the 23rd of May 2024 for a release date, and there's a free demo right now. Then for a tactical shooter, Every Day We Fight. This is a roguelite turn-based tactical shooter that follows ordinary people turned freedom fighters forced to defend their world against a superior alien species. You're trapped in a time loop where you explore the city to enhance the squad and uncover who they were before the invasion began. I mean, it's an interesting premise. Ordinary citizens turned resistance fighters trapped in a time loop fighting off aliens sounds really cool. But will this game be really cool? It's hard to say, but there's a lot of deep tactical decision making on the table, and interestingly, you can take control during action moments where you can choose when and where to shoot, adding tactical depth to the action. Might be a nice little twist to this subgenre, but we'll find out. It's aiming for a release in 2024 at some point, and we'll see how Every Day We Fight works out. Going back to World War II, Forgotten But Unbroken. This is a tactical turn-based strategy game inspired by XCOM, but supposed to be offering its unique take on the genre. You meet historical World War II heroes and fight against elite fighters of the Third Reich. You are leading the resistance against the Axis forces, helping to liberate Europe. Basically, yeah, it's World War II XCOM, and I mean, if it's just that, I think a lot of people will be into it, right? XCOM, very popular, everyone loves that as a turn-based tactics game. So basically, any other setting, if it's anywhere close to being as good as XCOM, people will love that. So the question really is, can it live up to that kind of quality and standards? Well, as it's aiming for a 2024 release, there is a free demo, so you can answer that question yourself. Free demo for Forgotten But Unbroken. Go have a look. Okay, then I'm gonna mention this one real quick, End State. This is a turn-based tactics game where you manage a mercenary company tracking down terrorists in a war-torn country. You hire, gear up, and gain experience for your mercenaries, take on rebels and criminal gangs, do side contracts, and explore Brickovia. So generally the idea seems good, but this one has been in early access since the end of 2022, so it's been over a year now, which is past its early access window, and it seems like it's going to take quite a bit longer because development is not exactly speeding on by. Also, right now, if you go to the Steam page at the time of recording, it does say it's got few, like just about 100 user reviews, and it's mixed, but let's be fair, the mixed review at the time of recording is 69%, which is 1% away from being positive, so basically it's teetering on a positive rating on Steam. I hate how 69% is completely viewed differently compared to 70% on Steam. The color change from blue to orange, it should be a gradient. But anyway, End State has been in early access. It could turn out to be something quite interesting through 2024, but we're gonna have to see how it goes. And then I do want to mention this one, but this game did sponsor me recently in the past, so I'll be very factual here. Classified France 44. This is a World War II tactical game where you command a team of Allied special operators in Nazi-occupied France, building up to D-Day. Basically, this looks like Commandos or XCOM, but it's set in World War II, and it's turn-based combat for what you would expect in a turn-based tactical game. This one did already release on the 5th of March 2024, so you can see what the game is right now and see what the user reviews say about it. I've covered Classified France 44 more in other lists, but it does fit the criteria of this list as well, so you can see what this one is like yourself. Headquarters World War II. This, contradictorily, is saying it's a fast-paced, turn-based strategy game where your battlefield tactics are as important as your army management skills. You get to experience both sides of the war, battling in Europe as the USA and the UK, or as Germany, storm bunkers, occupy houses, and win tank duels. So this game is a turn-based game. So it's the sort of classic tactics game where you have tanks and they do have sides, so shooting from the front or the back or the side does matter. Some tanks have more side armor than back armor, so shooting them in the back does count for extra points. But it is saying that it's fast-paced as well. And in a turn-based game, what that means is that generally you're not going to be slowly moving your units across the battlefield, getting into perfect position and then taking the perfect shots. It means you are going to be a bit more brawly with your tactics, but that doesn't mean you just throw strategy out the window. You do have to prove yourself as a masterful tactician. This game is coming with an editor tool to create skirmish and multiplayer maps, so the community-made content should keep this game going. And just visually, this one is one of the better looking ones. I had a closer look at this one over at Gamescom, and I zoomed right in to the game, like real up close to the visuals, and it's textured. It looks great. The art team did a phenomenal job on this game. Gameplay, I only touched it, and it seems pretty good, but we'll see how it pans out over the next year. Next up, Mars Tactics. Lead either capital or labor in an all-out war to control Mars. Command troops across both a detailed strategic map and procedurally generated tactical battlefields, outmaneuvering the enemy using suppression and flanks, or you can call in airstrikes to remake the battlefield in a fiery blast. War on Mars, with some nice little isometric graphics, which I'm not against. This game is meant to have total tactical freedom with classic turn-based tactical combat, and it has that sort of XCOM kind of stuff with suppression, flanking, cover, line of sight, fog of war, friendly fire, and all of that. So this is a more classical, tactical experience, which I know a lot of people are still very much into. I mean, this definitely have a Xenonauts vibe to it as well, being that classic. I mean, it is still a 3D game, but it has that isometric style, which does bring it back. And notably, they're sort of selling this goal-oriented action planning for the AI. Enemy soldiers and commanders think ahead and look for creative ways to accomplish their goals. So it's saying that the AI is actually going to be kind of clever in this one, and that's always a difficult task to achieve, but we'll see how they manage it. I mean, overall, I personally love the look of this because it is more classic, and I do like the classical style of games, tactics or otherwise, so I'm into this so far. And if you're into the classic games as well, then this might be another take on the Xenonauts XCOM kind of style. So yeah, I think this one's one that we can keep an eye on. Mars Tactics is now scheduled for a 2024 release as it was delayed from last year, so we'll see how it turns out later this year. For one more take on the squad tactics game, Project Haven. Here we have a game set on the mean streets of Earth's last city. Lead the Steel Dragons, a mismatched mercenary crew on high-risk missions. Invest in equipment and stay ahead of the game one bullet at a time. You can play the story solo or in co-op, Plus there's procedural skirmishes for 1 to 4 players. Now this is a squad-based tactical game, as we are familiar by this point, listing out immersive action, a flexible combat system, a story-driven campaign, RPG character progression, advanced weapon mechanics, particularly for ammo types, and weapon customizations and modifications. And there should be a lot of content with the solo campaign and the co-op modes. Project Haven was also supposed to release in 2023, but it was delayed into 2024. It generally looks good so far, and maybe it being delayed will improve the final product. Sticking to the monastery, but more on the illustration side, we've got Inkulinati. This is a game that's set on the pages of a medieval manuscript where you have to sort of, well, it's a turn-based strategy game where a rabbit's bum can be deadlier than a dog's sword is the line they're going for. Become a master of living ink. Build your own bestiary, defeat medieval superstars, and collect perks to unleash hidden powers. So this one is already in early access since the start of 2023, and it's going well. There's only a handful of reviews, but they are very positive, and like the last game, there really isn't anything else quite like this in the genre or anywhere, really. I mean, it's got a Monty Python-esque sort of vibe to it, of course. It's hard to ignore that comparison, but it does have its own unique style, and there's local PvP mode to duel your friends or foes, and it is pretty much a tactical combat strategy game. It's just the abilities and the units are, well, those weird drawings of snails and dogs and lions from medieval manuscripts, and it looks really cool. Inkulinati released on the 22nd of February 2024, and people continue to enjoy it as a niche kind of game. And then we've got Hexxen Hunters. Lead a party of 18th century hunters against the forces of hell in this turn-based tactical RPG that sort of feels like it's real time, but it's not, it is still turn-based. Manage your base of operations, train your team of witch hunters, and fight to save the world from certain doom. Aesthetically and gameplay-wise and setting-wise, it does have a sort of Darkest Dungeon vibe to it, but the main selling point of Hexxen Hunters is that even though it's turn-based, it's sort of designed to try and be real-time, or feel real-time. So when it's turned for a unit to move, there's a circle, like a radius, which they can run around in, and they can freely run around in there. And then you trigger your ability to attack a specific enemy, or heal an ally, or whatever. So even though it is turn-based and tactical, it doesn't feel as rigid. And that is an interesting approach to the combat, but we'll see how it actually works out. It's trying to be between turn-based and real-time, basically, and that could be really cool, or it could just not be as good as either one. But there is that base of operations and stuff, and interestingly, there is basically a countdown to the doomsday clock. So you need to either turn back time to stop the end of the world from happening, or achieve your objective in time. So there's a lot to see and do here, but it's still early days. It's planning to release sometime in 2024, and we'll be able to keep an eye on its development moving forward. But yeah, this combat system really is the thing to analyze here, and to see if it actually does work. Now, going back out into space and sci-fi, Moonbreaker. This is a turn-based strategy tactical skirmish game designed to be a true digital miniature experience. This game's set in an expansive sci-fi universe crafted by Brandon Sanderson, and you get to direct captain and crew in a gripping, ever-changing competition and adventure. Now, this really is supposed to be like tabletop miniature kind of experience, to the point where you get to paint your units. You get to paint your figures how you want. So basically, if you're into D&D, if you're into Warhammer, if you're into the tabletop miniature experience, then this is a tactics game for you. Like, half the selling point is that it is these miniatures. Like, they're animated like miniatures on a table and everything. So Moonbreaker seems very, very cool. It released on the 1st of February 2024 to very positive reviews on Steam. So people are liking it, but I do think it is for a specific audience. Like, if you're into this stuff, you should love this, right? If you're not into this stuff, then obviously, well, you're not going to be into this stuff. But yeah, Moonbreaker, very interesting, and yeah, that's Moonbreaker. We've got Menace, from the developers of Battle Brothers, most notably. But this time it's sci-fi and 3D. Lead a strike force against an alien threat in this turn-based tactical RPG as you're answering distress calls from across different worlds. Train and equip infantry, deploy tanks and mechs, and plan and execute missions in detailed turn-based battles. Now, Battle Brothers was sort of an unexpected success. When it was first revealed, everyone sort of complained about the art style and that it just looks like some small indie game, but Battle Brothers blew up. It became massively successful, and Menace, I don't know whether it's gonna be for the same audience, like gameplay-wise and mechanics-wise, yes, it's gonna be that kind of stuff that people love. But it is sci-fi, and it is 3D, and I wonder if people are gonna be like, no, I want the 2D art style that looks like Prison Architect and RimWorld, please bring that back. That's always gonna be how it is, right? You do one art style, people complain. You do the other art style, people still complain. But overall, Menace is looking like a really good game. It is planning to release in 2024. There's a lot to deal with on these tactical battles, including destructible environments and just changing of the landscape of things. And you do have to manage your resources and manage your soldiers as you try and survive through all of these various missions to not get whittled down by the other human and non-human threats. So yeah, I think Menace is one to watch, and it could be a huge success. There's a lot of lessons they could have learned from Battle Brothers to implement in this game, and it is very much a different thing, so they have the freedom to implement changes without being too tied to Battle Brothers. But we'll see how it goes. And of course, how could I have a tactics list without mentioning Xenonauts 2? A game that I personally have been watching for a long time, and it finally released into early access middle of 2023, and it is aiming for a 2024 release window, but of course, as they always say, it depends on player feedback, and we might stay in development longer. But it's Xenonauts 2, right? The sequel to a classic tactical game that's about a global war of resistance against an alien invasion. You command turn-based tactical battles, building a network of covert bases across the world, and directly control your fighter wings and achieve strategic victory in a simulation of asymmetric warfare against a technologically superior foe. Xenonauts is sort of the classic tactical game, sci-fi tactical game. And I mean, it's great to see that it's back. It's in isometric. It has that classic style. I mean, you can't get much more classic with a new tactics game than Xenonauts 2. And people are liking it through early access so far. It's just about crossed 1,000 user reviews at about 75% positive. So it's not the most liked, but it is still quite positive reviews, and it is still going through early access, so it should only get better from here. So yeah, Xenonauts 2. I think if you're a tactics fan, you probably already know about it, but I'm gonna mention it anyway because of course I am. There you have it. Press the like button and get games using the GOG referral link below to support videos like this one. Click the link and buy any game, it really does help. Thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members who support this channel and keeping videos like these being made. Join if you want your name on future videos. If you want to stay in the know for another genre, go to the next list video linked on screen, as I'm sure turn tactic commanders like yourself would not want to miss all the other strategy and 4X games in the other lists. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.